This is Gerardo Del Real with Resource Stock Digest. Joining me today is the president and CEO of Aben Resources, Mr. Jim Pettit. Jim, how the heck are you today?
I'm good, really good. Had a whole weekend to relax and catch up from the previous week up at the site.
Let's talk about how things are coming along at the site. You had some news a little less than a week ago. Let's be clear. The market is looking for high grade results from Forest Kerr. We got some assays that had long intervals of lower grade mineralization. There wasn't any of the blockbuster type high grade headline numbers that the market was hoping for in the beginning so far. And so obviously the stock sold off a bit. I wanted to get your take on the results that have come in and then what's to come here, because the program obviously is far from over. You and I joked off the record that you've started a couple of these seasons off with some spectacular numbers early on, and obviously that's not been the case thus far, but there's a lot of exploration left. So can we talk about Forest Kerr and then get that brief update on Justin as well?
Oh, sure, yeah. As you stated, we were just chatting about the last couple of years, or the last two seasons. We started the season with some pretty blockbuster results, and that was, we always hope we hit high grade. We happened to hit the very high grade those 2 years. This time we thought we were onto something, especially as reported, hole 51 had high levels of chalcopyrite in it, and we felt that would be showing the gold would show there, because that was the correlation in the past drilling. And we did hit lots of chalcopyrite last year in the south boundary zone. It did not have the high grades. And we are south of the north boundary zone where, what we just reported was in and around that Noranda hole, which is about 250 meters south, 200 to 250 meters south of the north boundary zone. And, we just stepped a little bit to the east and south of that in a big zone. We called it the Cirrusite zone. And it's, you want that. That's the alteration you want. Something happened. We didn't have the gold with the calco as we expected, but it was, we still had it there. And those three holes that were reported, yes, there were very broad intersections of low grade, so what looks like bulk tonnage type material. We're here for high grade. That's what we want. And that's what the market definitely wants. So, yeah, that was a bit of a disappointment, but, it's not always about what you do know. Sometimes it's what you don't know.
Absolutely.
And what we got there was something that was a bit of a surprise to us, but that's all being analyzed. We've still got a number of holes that are coming out of that immediate zone. That's going to give us a lot more info when we get the analytics back, which, I expect might be, well, when I was up there last week, they said it'll probably be 2 weeks for the next batch to come. And, so that'd be maybe around the 7th of September. I don't know. But now we've moved on. We're utilizing the geophysics in a much broader way now. There's lots of what we interpret as intrusions. We want to see that, because what we can correlate is where we've hit high grade and where the Noranda hole hit high grade. They're on these little folds, these little intrusives that look like folds. And then there's some big intrusions that stick out very bold as we move south. So we're testing those. Actually, you try to drill them kind of on obliquely, sort of. You don't want to go right into them necessarily. You want to go along the sides of them. That's where you would get any kind of substantial mineralization. So that's what we're doing. We are heading further south. There's the guys had generated new targets for us last year as we head south. I've been asked a few times, why aren't you drilling in the north boundary zone? Well, we put over 30 holes in it last year. It's pretty much baked, and we know what it is. That zone, that high grade zone, it's there. It's not going away. As we moved away from it, you get into more that lower grade bulk tonnage style. And it's, it's relatively, what would you call it, discontinuous, I guess. So we're looking for more. And ultimately what you want to find in this whole boundary zone is these sources, the feeders, these conduits, and try to find some of the bigger faults that run through there off the Kerr fault, because it's a very been called complex over the years, but that's what you're faced with. There's lots there. There's lots going on, and with the amount of the money we've had this year, there's a lot of and over the last few years, and a lot of money available to the Golden Triangle in general. It allows us to do a more detailed exploration work, and that's what we're working on right now. We've got some areas there that look like really good potential zones for bigger discoveries, bigger areas that are looking to be a little bit more continuous.
So just to be very clear, Jim,
Yeah.
you're working on finding feeder zones that are the source of the high grade. You're not really interested in the bulk tonnage, lower grade material that we all know is tough to make economic in that part of the world, correct?
Well, it'd have to be awfully big.
Right.
Yeah. No, we're looking for the high grade stuff. We know we're still in epithermal zones here. This is all like hydrothermal. We're not into porphyries. There is the ideas floating around that if we went deeper, we could well be hitting porphyries. That's not unusual for that whole neck of the woods. And some of the really successful deposits in the world are, they're epithermal sitting on top of porphyry systems. So, hey, you never know. We're thinking right now we are pretty entrenched in a hydrothermal system that's the sponsor of a lot of the really high grade gold. So there's lots more to do, and we're probably on hole right now 14, and looking like we'll probably get some of the holes are longer than we've done in the past, and that's because of the geophysics. But we'll probably get up to 21 to 24 holes for the season. It's going well.
Perfect. Well, it's a credit to your team that you are exploring for, frankly, what shareholders wrote a check for you to go to explore for, which was the high grade, right? Too often in the junior space, us shareholders write a check. The check is written for a very specific reason, and Mother Nature being how Mother Nature can be, sometimes you don't find what you're looking for. That's usually the rule, not the exception. And so many times junior resource companies change and pivot, and all of a sudden, we funded a program that we didn't fund, right? And so kudos to you for sticking to what the main premise was and what you're looking for. You're either going to find it or you're not, but at the very least, you're giving yourself the best chance of hitting those feeder zones that you're looking for. So kudos to you guys. Let's talk Justin. You also had some releases, some assays there in the same release.
Yep. Well, yeah, we did get the results back like the day before on Justin from the second lab, because there was a bit of a disappointment there with the diamond drilling. We go through the exact same stratigraphy that we did in 2012, and we hit it. We hit the sulfide zone. We crossed a contact, and we did hit gold. And in this particular case, it was the guys, I guess they just didn't believe the assay lab, because there was no way that we could go through those same zones that were carrying gold not very far away. And so we sent it off to another lab, and came back confirming the original lab. And, everyone's shaking their heads there. And then the RAB drilling, which I guess in a perfect world should have been better than it was, but we were dealing with a lot of water near the surface. And that type of drilling is not real conducive to being wet. It's kind of like percussion drilling or rotary drilling you want it dry, because it pulverizes instead of a nice solid core. And in this case, if it gets wet, it's a lot of the heavy elements sift to the bottom. So you don't get a representative sample, and it was difficult. But, at this point, it is what it is. We can't do anything about it. So I just found that whole thing a real disappointment. Fortunately, I raised separate dollars for it. And, the money that we raised for Forest Kerr didn't get used up there. But, you don't always win.
Nope.
Doesn't mean it's over either. But it is what it is. You got to take the good with the bad sometimes.
Nature of the beast. So more assays coming from Forest Kerr. We're hoping, of course, to hit some of that, some of the high grade zones that we've seen in the past, and more of it in a continuous way. Anything else you want to add, Jim?
No, for now that's good. I think might be a couple of weeks we get more assays coming, and I think this next round of assays will be more holes in the same area, because there's a couple of holes there that we did off the same pad because we liked what we saw. So you do a fan,
sure,
a vertical fan.
Excellent. Well, I look forward to having you back on when those assays come in, Jim. Thank you for taking the time and explaining everything to everybody.
You bet. Thanks, Gerardo.
All right. You have a good one.
Okay.